I was a troublemaker in high school. I stumbled backwards into weatherization. When I bought this house, it was just a fallen down piece of junk. The most dangerous thing I've ever done. I think punk rock changed my life. And then I kind of found out that DJs make like minimum wage.
Hi everyone, welcome to Retrofit Radio. Joining us today is our guest, IHWAP's fearless leader, Mr. Mick Prince. And Mick, the floor is yours, so go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, thanks Madden. Thanks for having me on the show. My name's Mick Prince. I'm the Weatherization Program Manager for the state of Illinois, the Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program, or as we call it, IHWAP. I've been doing this about 10 years this month. I've been in this role with the program. I'll just give you a little bit of my bio and how I got into weatherization. Is that all right?
Yeah, that was my next question. So how did you get into weatherization?
Yeah, so I stumbled backwards into weatherization. The Great Recession of 2008. I was a carpenter and a woodworker, and there wasn't really much work in that field at the time. And one of my friends in Jacksonville, Illinois, Sarah Van Aken is her name. I owe it all to her. She saw a job posting in the Jacksonville paper, and it was for a weatherization crew leader. I didn't even really know what that was, but I was like, yeah, I read a little bit about weatherization. I was like, well, I've done most of that stuff. So anyway, I applied for the job, and that was at MCS Community Services, one of our local community action agencies in Jacksonville, and the rest is history, I guess, so to speak.
So you came in as a crew lead. Would you say that's a typical jumping off point for people in weatherization, or do they usually start in a different role?
Well, in Illinois, it's a little different. We don't have a lot of crew-based agencies. I think we have like 5 crew-based agencies out of 29. So a lot of folks in Illinois, they get into the program as an energy auditor or, field staff, energy auditor, final inspector. But fortunately for me, I guess, I didn't love being a crew leader by any stretch, but that was my starting point in the program. But I didn't last long as a crew leader. I think they thought that my talents would be better suited to be an energy auditor and final inspector, and I managed we had 3 crews at the time at MCS, so I quickly shifted into that role.
Okay, so as someone who doesn't have as much, any experience really in the field, so what are you doing as a crew leader that you're not doing as an energy auditor?
Yeah, so as a crew leader, I was in the homes, actually installing. I had 2 crew members under me at the time, and we did all of the architectural measures. So we were insulating the homes, air sealing. At that time, we did a lot of window replacement, door replacement, light carpentry work, along with the air sealing and insulation work that we do. Yeah.
Do you remember your first day as a crew lead, like in the field?
Yeah.
Remember what that was like?
I do. I went out with another weatherization crew leader, and I remember we were putting windows in a house, and they weren't really measured correctly, and these guys were like pumping caulk around these just looked horrible to me, and and I had done a lot of high-end carpentry work and custom cabinetry and things like that, and the quality I wasn't very proud of. I went back to the office that first day, and I was like, talked to my boss, Tommy Bulig, and I was like, man, I just don't know if I can do this. If this is the way it is, I can't put my name on some of the stuff those guys were doing. And he was like, well, just do it your way. And so that freedom that he gave me was what kept me in weatherization. I was accustomed to a certain level of quality, and I wasn't going to regress. So anyway, I didn't have to. It's nice.
How long were you a crew leader for then before you transitioned to energy auditor?
Probably like less than 6 months. We're back in the Wayback Machine now, but yeah, I didn't do it very long. They needed more energy audits and final inspections, and we were able to promote from within the crew and to fill my role. So yeah, less than 6 months.
So, with your construction background, you kind of seemed like a natural fit for crew leader. But then, what was the learning curve like once you transitioned to energy auditor?
Yeah, so for me, it was a very simple transition. I I I had been a business owner and done a lot of bid work and things like that in the past. So creating a scope of work and figuring materials and things like that was not foreign to me at all. So it was a really natural transition. I of course had to my time as a crew leader, like I had to run the blower door and do some of the diagnostic tests. I might not have fully understood the theory behind it all, but from a mechanics standpoint, I was able to quickly pick up on how to do the diagnostic tests needed and things like that. So for me, it was a really natural transition. Might not be like that for everybody, but
Did they have a training program back there that you would go through like we do today, or not really?
yeah. So they had TCP. I think back then it was 8 or 9 weeks in length. We added heat pump and AC to that, and I think we added a week of health and safety. That we had a health and safety class, but we kind of restructured the coursework. It was 10 weeks for the longest time, and then I think now with the online piece that they've added, it's back down to like 9 weeks. But the only thing that TCP didn't have that we have now was the heat pump and air conditioning specific training. Yeah.
So then you moved on to state tech. Is that your next step?
Yeah. I met the state tech that monitored us while we were at, while I worked at MCS. And no offense to MCS, but they didn't pay what I was interested in making, and Tommy Bulig was the weatherization coordinator there. He still had 10 plus years before retirement, so there was limited growth opportunity. So I talked to our state tech. Jake Altman was his name. He was a really good, talented tech at the time, and I was like, I want to do what you're doing. Like, that's where I need to be. And he was like, well, that's a coincidence because we're hiring. You should apply. You know, I think I worked at MCS for, I don't know, year and a half maybe. And then,
That's fast.
yeah, then they were hiring at the state. I didn't have veterans preference, or I wasn't a current state employee. All of the things were against me, but it was during the Recovery Act, and we were hiring several state techs, so it finally got down to like the public, right, list, and there were 2 positions left, and I got hired on one of those last 2 positions that they were hiring. Worked out really good for me.
What area were you initially assigned to as a tech?
Yeah, so because I had all this carpentry and previous weatherization experience, I didn't, there was not much of a learning curve for me moving on to the state. I know I didn't have years of experience, but I understood weatherization really well. It clicked for me. And so early on, just a couple weeks into my role as a state tech, I was out doing training and technical assistance for agencies, either for crew-based agencies or for energy auditors and final inspectors. Of course, I was monitoring and such too, but they really leaned on me um, to do a lot of training. Some of the other techs that came on at that time had no background in weatherization, so they were learning the job still, and I kind of knew what I needed to do, and I was able to hit the ground running as soon as I got hired at the state. So
Hmm. And then while you were a tech, that was when you managed to uncover some fraud. Is that right?
yeah, yeah. We we at the time we had a system that our energy audit and client application, all that was housed in what we called WeatherWorks. And I think that was developed in 1999, came online around 2001. But there was always complaints about SIRs changing, what happened. And so more it was I was looking at quality assurance. I was doing desk audits of jobs. And I came from a crew-based agency, and we had the cheapest window prices in the state of Illinois. And I remember my old boss, Tommy Bulig, he's like, man, we cannot get windows to SIR anymore. And so I started doing desk audits, and I was noticing agencies had high SIR values for window replacement. And I'm like, that's strange.
It's a red flag.
Yeah, Tommy's getting like a point 0.2 SIR for his window replacements, and these other agencies are getting like a 1.3. And so inquiring minds want to know, I recalculated the SIR, and it came back with like a 0.19 SIR. That's weird. I didn't change anything in the state entry, so like, what on earth is happening here? But yeah, there were people, and there was a lot of pressure at that time to get the money spent, right? I think the leadership at the state at the time, it was very important to them that we meet production goals as a state, and agencies were willing to break the rules to increase the budgets on these projects. Another thing that happened before that was we had got our energy audit certified by DOE, and they made us change the calculations for windows. I think it was the effective leakage rate around a window was reduced significantly, and that lowered the SIRs. So agencies were accustomed to installing a lot more windows, and it was almost a windows and doors program at that time. When those changes came about in WeatherWorks, they were not happy that scope of work didn't look the same as it did last year, right? And the system's broken, and so they did some creative things to manipulate SIRs back then.
I'm unfamiliar how you would even like modify that sort of data. Were they changing the prices of the windows, the quantity? Like what was going on?
Yeah, so they they were manipulating the existing size of the window, and so they made the window. I don't some there were some really gross exaggerations of window size, but literally some of them were wider than the wall that they even appeared on, right?
What?
So,
And you were the first one to catch on to this?
well, the story gets better because our system had a flaw. They were manipulating the size of the windows, then they would put the window replacement in, and so the system thought we're replacing a 3x5 window, right? It's looking at the cost, right? That's whatever at the time, $250, let's say. But then it
Okay.
thinks we're increasing the U value and the efficiency of a giant window for like $250. So it was mostly, it was cost manipulation in the end, is what was really happening. But what made it so hard to detect was that after they ran the SIR calculation, our system didn't, it would allow them to go in and put the size back to the actual size and didn't require recalculation. So it wasn't that they were hiding the fact that they had made these edits to the data entry. They got the SIR that was favorable, and then we put everything back to make it look like it was run correctly. So I had to work with our IT team, go over the audit trail for the system, and you could see every keystroke that they did to manipulate this data. So yeah, that was a big forensic IT audit, I guess we did.
So you discover the fraud, and then what happens next?
Okay. What happens next? I immediately reported the fraud to my supervisor, who was kind of hem-hawing on what to do. And at that time, I thought it was one agency that was doing it. He emailed our deputy director, who then just kind of sat on it. And while they were sitting on it, I was researching other agencies to see if this was happening anywhere else. And I think there were 13 agencies at that time that were.
Out of how many?
Out of 35.
Wow.
But all over the state, though. And ultimately, I was faced with a moral dilemma, I guess you would say. My deputy director at the time was not doing anything with respect to what the fraud that we had uncovered, and so I had to. My direct supervisor said, "Let's go talk to labor relations downstairs." And so we went in the HR department. We explained what was happening, and after that happened, everything escalated really quickly on SIR Gate. Yeah.
Didn't the FBI get involved?
Not for SIR Gate. There was another issue where the FBI was involved, but that was for a separate issue that ended up being a non-issue.
Okay.
We can talk about it if we want.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah. So CETA is our largest subgrantee in Chicago. And I think we had a weatherization specialist at the time. I'll leave his name out of it, but he was really convincing, and he was kind of the WeatherWorks expert on staff, and he was a senior staff person. He was looking at data in WeatherWorks from our test or our training server, and training is like a snapshot in time. Right, and it doesn't update like production does. So he was looking at data that was like a year or two old in the test system, and he was seeing the address in test was coming up as like a 2010 job number, and then he found that same job number in production, but it was a 2011 job number. And in his mind, he was thinking that somehow they have paid for this job in 2011, and they've also paid for it in 2010. He didn't understand that that test or training data was old data. This job had been rolled. The grants would have never reconciled if what was happening in his mind was actually happening. We have plenty of safeguards in place to make sure that things like that can't happen, but he had convinced himself that it was. And so I think he made a whistleblower complaint somewhere or called the FBI or whatever, but there was a full-blown FBI investigation into our our network that went on for the longest time, and then there was nothing there. There was
Mhm.
there was no evidence that of any malfeasance, I'll say. But yeah, that was an
That's good.
interesting time as well.
What year or years was that? Do you remember?
Probably like 2011, 2012, something along those lines.
Okay, so over a decade
Yeah, I
ago.
had just been at the state a couple of years. Yeah, but
You were a tech at that
yeah,
point still?
yeah, I was a tech, and it was honestly it was happening up at CETA. I wasn't involved in any of the. I didn't go up there to monitor or train or anything. At that time, we had a whole group of techs out of the Chicago office, so it was kind of out of sight, out of mind for me. I just kept doing my thing downstate and trying to help as many people as we could down here.
So back to SIR Gate really quickly. Start to finish, how long was that process? You first noticed a red flag to it's resolved or as resolved as it can be.
Well, I think it took a couple years before it was all ironed out, and of course we had um, the Inspector General involved, or the Office of Executive Inspector General. We had our legal counsel. We had um, the, the legal counsel for all of the agencies that were involved, and it took several years to get it all ironed out. We had some disallowed cost with the Department of Energy that had to be repaid, and yeah, it was a big deal, and it took quite a while to get it straightened out.
How long had you been a tech when you first noticed?
Like a couple years. I
So
mean,
relatively new then, or
yeah, yeah,
you felt like you
yeah. Well, the funny thing is that the tech that I mentioned about the FBI incident, he was thoroughly convinced that there was fraud happening, but this SIR gate stuff was happening right under his nose, and he had no idea that it took some junior guy like me to figure it out, I guess. It's really because I had experience at a local agency. I knew what the costs were, how those costs related to favorable SIRs or not favorable SIRs, and I was able to see that there was something going on there that didn't make sense. Yeah.
how long were you a state tech for?
5 years, five and some change before I started doing training and monitoring. At some point, a couple years in, we started a training unit. And then from the training unit, I started picking up more admin assignments, and then there was an opening for the weatherization um, program manager, and I applied for that and got it. I'd been a tech for at least around 5 years, I think, and some change.
Okay, so that's your current role, correct?
Yeah.
How long have you been in that role then?
Officially since March of 2016, from an unofficial,
That's 10 years this month, right?
yeah, unofficially, I
Congrats.
started that. We had a budget impasse. There was all kinds of drama at the state of Illinois at that time, and I started managing the program in the fall of 2015. But we couldn't get my salary hashed out to make it official until March of 2016 is when I took over. So I just did it for free for 6 months or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to hit pause on now that we've seen your entire professional development
Yeah.
arc, we're going to hop in the way, way back machine. You have owned a couple of businesses. Is that right? Including a sawmill?
Yeah. Yeah. Owned a sawmill. I don't know what dates these would be. That you're testing me now, but
I
got a
don't need dates.
sawmill, and did kitchens and baths. So I did remodel work, and my dad was a woodworker his whole professional career. I guess he started as a carpenter, but had been a woodworker for 20 years, and he was a hothead. He got mad at, he was a head woodworker at this place in Springfield for years, and they made him mad and he quit and just started doing his own thing. Well, he's not a businessman, and he's one of the most talented woodworkers I've ever seen. And so I was young and I was like, let's do this. So we started a business, and yeah, we worked with my dad for several years before getting into weatherization. So that was a pretty cool experience.
That was a woodworking business?
Well, we did kitchens and baths, so we had a
Okay.
shop and we build the cabinetry as well as do the install and in whatever light remodel work we had to do to, remodel folks' kitchens or bathrooms. But yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like your dad had a big influence on you. Do you want to tell me more about that?
Yeah, so from the time I was like that I can remember, he was a woodworker, and he did a lot of projects, right in his home shop, and I just I mean from like the age of 2 when I can start forming some memories, I was sitting out there in the shop with him, and he'd give me a saw and a block of wood and just hanging out in the shop. And when I got into high school, he used to do some side work for the company that he worked for, and my brother Matt and I worked with him on some woodworking projects going back to all the way when I was in high school. So yeah, he's had a big influence on I he was a really good woodworker, and so like seeing the cool stuff he was able to create over the years was pretty inspiring to me for sure.
And now you're a woodworker in your free time, is that right?
Yeah, when I have time. I've got some awesome woodworking tools. I wish I could spend more time out in the shop uh using them.
What's your favorite project you've ever done?
I don't most of the stuff I've done is you can't really tell, but I'm in a 105-year-old house here. When I bought this house, it was just a fallen down piece of junk and it really needed burnt to the ground, but I was young and cocky and thought I can fix that up. Most of the stuff that I've done has been for here, to make this place nicer. So I did a custom kitchen. It's been 15 plus years ago. I've done some cool built-ins, but I think for fun, I my son plays baseball, and I've turned quite a few baseball bats for him. I think that's fun. It's pretty relaxing doing lathe work, and it's not something for the house, It's just something relaxing. You can go out there and spend some time. So I like turning bats. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
How long does a bat take to make
Takes
on
me way
average?
too long. I could never make, people are like, I'll pay you for a bat. And I'm like, no, you can't afford it. Like, I'll just give you a bat.
The man hours
It
alone
probably
would
takes
be.
me 3 hours to turn a bat and get it sand where I want it. Those CNC lathes at the Louisville Slugger factory probably turn one in about 2 minutes or less. So yeah, it takes
Right.
me.
I know nothing about woodworking. So do you just take a block of wood and carve it into a bat? How
Yeah,
does that work?
so I order billets, so they're already round.
Okay. That's
30,
just a round piece of wood.
yeah, 37 inches long, and chuck it up in the lathe. And I always make a template that you kind of go along the stock, and you get the measurements that you need for each part, and you insert the correct diameter, and then you connect the lines. Basically, is how it works. I'm working on building a pattern lathe, so I can just go out there and not have to think about it and just replicate the same bat over and over. But yeah, turning stuff on a lathe is really relaxing, and you look up and you've been out there for like 2 hours turning
I
something. So
bet.
yeah, it's pretty fun.
What kind of wood do you like to use for bats? Is there a specific one?
Hard maple, generally speaking. It's dense and the ball jumps off of it better. Let's get we need performance here, right? So anyway, hard maple's
Yeah.
my wood of choice.
What would you say the hardest woodworking project you've ever done was? Whether you finished or not?
Yeah, well, we did kitchens and baths for people, and so sometimes folks can be pretty eccentric, right? And they want furniture built into their cabinetry, and we did some pretty trick um, kitchens back in the day, and so and they also just come to you with like some rough drawing, right? Then there's nobody designing this stuff for us, so we had to kind of take like vague instruction, sometimes a photo that's
Hmm.
not to scale or anything, and try to turn that into what our clients were envisioning. And people that are paying for custom kitchens and baths are sometimes hard to deal with in the first. I'll just leave it at that. If you've got
I
enough
could see.
money for some of the kitchens we were doing, they could be a pain in the butt. That's
Hmm.
the best way to describe them. So anyway.
Were you a shop kid in high school, or what was your favorite subject?
I don't know what I was a troublemaker in high school. I didn't.
A delinquent.
Yes, yeah, I didn't. I think took shop 1 year, but my dad's taught me more than any shop class was going to teach me. I didn't. It was too slow for me. They start you way back. Like
Yeah.
anyway, so
Let's make a cutting board sort of
yeah,
back.
yeah.
And
So
you're like, I'm making cabinets. I know how to do
I
this.
wasn't that into shop class. I thought I went to Capital Area Vocational Center was the name of it at the time. It's Capital Area Career Center in Springfield. And I thought I wanted to get into radio and TV. I did their communications and media and photography class out there when I was a junior and senior. And then I kind of found out that uh, DJs make like minimum wage. It's about what they were paying. I was like, man, that doesn't sound that great. And all of the
Right.
jobs you get are either the middle of the night or they're at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and that wasn't. I didn't want to do that.
Obviously, before the time of podcasting.
Yeah, yeah. This would have been perfect.
Hmm. I've noticed a lot of music influences within the t-shirts that you like to make. You've got IWAP Army, obviously referencing Tiger Army. You've got CSBG in the classic CBGBs. Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah. Uh,
So, okay, talk to me about that.
yeah. So, uh, I think punk rock changed my life. I think that's in a Sublime song too, but it did change my life. I love punk music. I love the ethos. I like the do-it-yourself, attitude of punk rock. I'm in a job that requires compliance and all these things, but I still have the anti-authority attitude running behind the scenes at all times. And then the imagery of punk rock, I always thought was super cool. And so, yeah, I've tried to make some punk rock inspired weatherization T-shirts, and they're fun. They're
Hmm.
good to hand out at for awards at conferences and stuff like that. And then I'm surprised, but I've seen people wearing them actually, and putting pictures of themselves wearing them. So it must be pretty cool.
I've seen people get compliments on them.
There you go.
We've gone to conferences and people love the CSBG shirts. Like, just being in a group with someone wearing it, at least one person's gonna come up and be like, "Where did you get that shirt? I love that shirt."
There you
They're
go.
like, "It's a custom,
I'm wearing that
actually."
shirt under. I changed into this because I thought, well, I shouldn't wear a T-shirt on Retrofit Radio, but I've got that shirt on
Can wear
right
whatever
now.
you want.
Yeah,
So, do you have any more designs up your sleeve? Any more you're looking to do?
yeah. We've I've got this Captain Harlock Weatherization skull and crossbones. We're getting some Raglan 3/4 length t-shirts with that. And then I've got the Ramones Eagle, I'll call it, and it's holding a baseball bat. And it's that we've got those that are coming soon. So
Punk rock, baseball bats, two of your
yeah,
favorite things.
yeah,
One t-shirt.
yep, perfect.
There you go. Okay, so let's circle back to professional development. We're going to talk about IWEX for a little bit, but maybe not in the way that we're used to talking about IWEX. Most of us know the story, but I want to know, in the slog that was getting IWEX made, what were your personal motivators? How did you stay motivated during that?
That's a good question. Well, one of the motivating factors was that WeatherWorks was outdated the second we went live with it. It was built in like a VB6 SQL server. Like I said, they started building that around 1999. Well, so much stuff was happening with technology at the time that their choice to build it in whatever platform, that SQL server Visual Basics background. By the time we went live with it, .NET was already a thing, and now the new latest and greatest, which people still building in .NET systems, but so it was outdated from day one. I didn't have experience with it until 7 or 8 years into its lifespan, and our network was like, this thing needs replaced right now. And so at some point, I became the liaison between our office and our IT, that and so I was responsible for WeatherWorks. So motivating me, it took us 5 years. I think we're still building IWEX, but it was a long project. The motivation to succeed, just like we can't fail, right? We've come too far. And then we wanted it to basically encompass everything that we do in the program to be housed in one system, and just, seeing the progress, sometimes ever so slowly, but it was a grind for sure. But, it's one of those things. It's like we've come too far. We've got to see this thing through. And so I don't know. It was the biggest grind project you've ever been a part of. You've been a part of it on some level, right, Madden?
Have.
But yeah, we're getting there. It's still not what I want it to be, but it's constantly getting better and evolving. So I think eventually it's going to be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think it's a huge leap forward for the program.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you didn't see the internet, the first time I saw it was in like 1994. That's what WeatherWorks looked like, was the internet the first time I'd hopped on it. And
Just the internet.
yeah, I don't even know what it was. I remember I was in that communications and media class, and my teacher was like, "This is the most amazing thing ever." I was like, "What is it?" "We're going to download a song." I don't know if we were on Napster or what we were on. I'm like, "Okay, let's do this." And he's like, "All right, what song do you want?" I picked a song. He's like, "Tomorrow when you get back to class, this will be
Tomorrow.
downloaded all the way." And I was like, "You got to be kidding. Like, I can drive to Best Buy 400 times and get a song before this one downloads." But he was right. It was cool. I just 18 hours to download a song didn't resonate with me. But that's what WeatherWorks was like. It was the 18-hour one song download. So we've come a long way.
That's cracking me up. Okay, so Retrofit Radio is your newest project, I would say.
It's your newest project.
To collab.
Yeah.
What are you hoping that Retrofit Radio accomplishes?
Well, I think the primary goal is to expose people to this field I want to be more intentional with how people get into weatherization. I stumbled into it, and I had two little kids. I needed a job really bad. I was like, okay, let's do this. But your dad is an example. He was a carpenter. He had injury, right? And so he needed to do something that was less taxing on his body. Those stories are nobody intentionally finds weatherization, and so I want to create like a pathway and just get the information out about what we do in energy efficiency. That's my goal.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
So if someone in the trades is listening right now, what would you want to tell them?
Well, I think that the trades are catching up, but they're still behind what we do with respect to building science. I definitely think some of the energy codes that have come on, but I think that physically, like the work we do is not as exhausting as the trades. I feel like the trades sometimes are a race to the bottom. The harder you work, the faster your body breaks down, and I think this is kind of a nice happy medium. You get to learn about some really cool building science and ways to make existing buildings perform better. No offense to the tradespeople that came before us, but they weren't real concerned with how a house performed as long as you weren't wet when you were inside of it, right? As long as it's not leaking, that was good enough. And so I just think that if you're interested in the trades, this is a little techier version of that. A lot of cool diagnostics work that we do in home performance and weatherization, and I think that this would be. I think that if you're interested in tech and you're interested in working with your hands and trades type work, this is a great fit for people.
So as someone who came from the trades, knowing what you know now, would you have done anything differently back then?
No, I wouldn't be as good at this job if I didn't have the experience that I had, before I got involved in weatherization. Um, so I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, you'd walk the same path.
Yeah,
What would you tell 20-year-old you?
everything's gonna be all right. When I started in the trades, I didn't work for a union shop or anything like that. And it was feast or famine. In the summer, you're working 10 hours of overtime a week. And then the winter, oh, look, it's around the holidays. We're working just enough so you don't qualify for unemployment. You're working like 10-hour. I still don't like Christmas just because I felt like I was always like broke, couldn't even afford a Christmas present. But anyway, it's all going to turn out okay. That would be the message I'd have for myself.
That's very nice. So let's go ahead and move on to our kind of closing session. I'm going to have you pick 3 numbers between 1 and 20, and they'll just be random questions. They're not going to be IWAP related.
Okay.
So go ahead.
3 numbers between 1 and 20. I'm going to pick 7. That was Mickey Mantle's number. And I'm going to pick 13 for obvious punk rock reasons. And I will pick 20. No reason.
No reason. Let's start with 20. We'll work our way backwards.
Okay.
What is the most dangerous thing you've ever done, and why did you do it?
The most dangerous thing I've ever done. The most dangerous legal thing I've ever done.
Yes. Let's.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
I worked in construction. We did a lot of things that were not OSHA compliant back then. And it wasn't even because we didn't know better, but just like 3-story commercial buildings and walking walls on those. And you take a lot of risks in the construction field. that you probably shouldn't take, and your employer may or may not know you're taking those risks. But why did you do it? Was to get a job done, basically, right? When you don't have access to all of these fancy lifts and things that they have, or you do have access to them, but you need to get from point A to point B, you might walk an outside wall on a 3-story building just to get there and to get something done. Don't do
Wow.
it though, right?
Okay. Number 13. What is something that you've always wanted to learn?
I've always wanted to learn how to play a musical instrument. My brother was a very talented guitarist, and he's taught me some chords and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I can play a guitar. I can't replicate I can play some cool power chords and make some cool punk rock sounds come out of it, but I would like to. I think with YouTube and the online training stuff that's available now, I've said I'm going to buy a guitar and just teach myself online how to play.
Okay. Electric or acoustic?
Electric.
I kind of had
Yeah.
guessed that, but okay. Last question. What's something you're terrible at, but you wish you could do well?
Yeah. Well, I'm not the most organized person, but I got people that are super organized. And you know, I don't ever take notes in a meeting. I rely on my memory all the time. And usually I used to take notes in all these meetings, and then I never went back and referenced them anyway. So I was like, I'll just rely on myself. But I could get more organized for sure, and that would definitely help me. I've gotten a lot better over the years, utilizing my calendar and such, and in Outlook and things like that to help keep me on track. But I don't know, maybe I just don't have the attention span or whatever. So I would like to be more organized in the future, both in my personal life. Like, you should go see my shop right now. It's a disaster. But anyway, yeah, that's something I could definitely get better at.
I think that's an achievable goal.
I do too. You got to
Yeah.
want it.
Yeah. How much do I need this?
Yeah.
Right. What's one thing you want listeners to take away from this episode?
Well, you can be that fringe kid in high school that maybe doesn't want to go to college, or I attempted college. I went to community college off and on for a couple years. Work ethic will take you really far in life. You applying common sense will take you far in life, and regardless if college is your path or the trades are your path, if you work hard at it, that you can achieve some big things. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, folks, that is all the time we have today for our guest, Mick. Mick, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And listeners, don't forget to follow and subscribe to Retrofit Radio wherever you're watching or listening. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Retrofit Radio Podcast, and you can watch us on YouTube at Retrofit Radio Podcast. We will see you next time.